I feel like if you're an addict of anything, you got to build yourself a toolbox, and you got to pack, it could be you get a tattoo on your arm that says the thing, and you look at that. Or it could be that you like to journal a lot, and first thing in the morning you ask yourself, how can I make sure that today I have a good day? Or like there's all kinds of tools. I'm a big fan of making up tools and methods. So I have I've been slowly writing about them. I never considered to share them until a few weeks ago, like the actual
Okay.
specifics. But I'm planning on writing all the ones I use down, because everybody's different, and you need a wide variety available,
Yeah.
because one of them will match up with what works for you. So so
Love
yeah, for
that, Tim.
me, one of the tools that I use is I food prep. I food prep the
Oh,
shit out
okay.
of my life, and then if if I and I when I go to the grocery store and I'm in a good range, I uh I go out of my way to buy way too much of the things that I'm supposed to eat, so that when I bring that home and I put it in the fridge, and like I said, I'm on the road every week. I spend half my week at home and half my week at work. So half the week I'm totally relying on myself to keep out of the ditches. Um, Nobody there to guide me, like nobody else to answer to. So on the way to work, I stop at the grocery store and I pick up a couple steaks and whatever things that I consider the correct food, right? Get that back to my fridge, or bring it from home. I'll bring frozen food. Like I'll cook. Sometimes I'll meal prep a week's worth of food and I'll bring it with me in a cooler. Okay, so now if I have that back at the room and I've had a bad day at work, I know that if I don't go back to the room and eat that food, I'm going to be throwing it away. So
Mm,
that's then that's a waste, right? And then I've just sabotaged myself. So I have to remember that. Like I still have to remember that I got the food at home. It has to be something I want to eat. Like you have to make it as easy as possible on yourself. You can't make anything that's like a challenge. It has to be like, okay, I've already made this decision and I've already got something I like eating. So there's no options to screw up, right? Like I've taken care of all the holes. And yeah, because I guess it would be just a matter of me letting myself go for a month and I'd be back to where I was, is how it feels. I know it wouldn't be quite as bad because I've got the experiences, but it does
right.
feel like it is a slippery slope. So you take care of that slope. You put some sand on it so it's not slippery anymore, and you add friction. You make it harder to screw up. I guess relating that to a porn addiction, you add friction by removing your devices from your bedroom, and by making sure that, like you said, you're out in the public instead of in a dark room, and you add as much friction as you can. Like there's no reason that we need to do everything by willpower and hard. Like we make it easy. And I think if we maintain uh, a good like obviously you're gonna have challenges, you're gonna have setbacks and stuff, but if you maintain a fairly even slope of a rise over long enough time,
Mm.
we build good habits, and then you can rely on those habits. Um, yeah, I've talked a lot about that now, so
Hello. And if you're watching, I'm looking down. I'm just taking notes
yeah.
because I think there's a lot of really good stuff in here. Yeah, and I mean, it's just kind of nuts. This is our second time talking, and I feel like as you're talking about your of food and building habits and having a toolbox, there's so much application, right, to porn or to other things that we might be struggling with compulsively that we know is not healthy for us. So I really love that because I actually I've had a few times actually. So we have a Buc-ee's in Colorado. I don't know. You're from Canada, so you're probably you Americans are
Nope.
crazy. But Buc-ee's is like this giant, crazy, like bright lights spectacle, American spectacle that started in Texas, and it's just this giant gas station, and uh they have like this giant thing where they'll like make meat and like cut up brisket and stuff
Oh
and
yeah.
all that. So I've had some times because it's between my girlfriend's place and like where my home base is. So that's one thing that really resonated with me. I had one time actually I went in there where there was a part of me that pulled me in there, I ended up just walking out with some sparkling water
Oh yeah.
because Danny's like, "Stay away from Buc-ee's." Yeah, Buc-ee's will pull you in, there's a lot there. But I just wanna share that because that was a win in my book because I remember I went in there and I just, like, started to look at the nutritional packages.
Yep.
Anytime I was telling myself, "Hey, you should buy this, it'll be really tasty." I'll look at the price of it, and then yeah, Asante, Buc-ee's is the most American thing ever. That is very correct. Um, uh, but you'll look at I would look at the nutritional label, and it would just be packed full of just crap, right?
Yeah.
And but it the way that I thought of it that resonated with what you said is you actually have to have that conversation in your head. You actually have to talk to yourself or include somebody else in that accountability structure. Like if you have a primal health coach like yourself, to where you're going to have to be accountable some way if you, let's just say, end up getting something that you know
Yep.
is not healthy for you, like a fast food burger, or you go to get some fries or something, right? To where you know deep down inside this is something that I don't want this anymore in my life. Like I want to either eliminate it or bring it to a point to where I have control. I have
Hmm.
self-control where if it does happen, it's not something that's going to happen that often. But I think that's different for everybody when it comes to probably a lot of things, right? But I just wanted to say that a lot that resonated with me a ton, and I saw a bunch of hearts going up as you were talking. So I think it's really resonating too with the live audience, which I appreciate everyone being on right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think, like, just to be clear, like, some people are gonna be able to get away with having McDonald's once a week or whatever, and
Sure.
that's not their thing. That's not their poison. This is my poison. Other people,
Mhm.
like, I can go out and have a drink. Nothing happens at all. I
Sure.
just go home then. I can have one drink and then not have another drink for 3 months. Alcohol has no hold on me. So, yet if I go to McDonald's and have a large fries, then I have 3 days of resisting temptations, like
Yeah.
massive temptations, yeah. So that's where I think everybody needs to realize that I think everybody's addicted to something and maybe not even aware of it. It could be there any number of things. It won't necessarily be a substance. It could be the feeling you get from a properly spreadsheeting all the information, and it's fine to be addicted to that. That doesn't probably cause you any problems in your life. But I know people that are at work that are perfectionists, and they're at work, and so we've all got these little things that we use to cope, and some of them are going to
Mhm.
be more harmful than other things for sure. Um, I I think self-awareness is where it's our job to be more self-aware. I feel like it's our duty as people, as human beings, to try to grow and be more self-aware. And it doesn't even matter if like the food, it's harmful to my health, but it doesn't really hurt anybody else per se. So for my own best interest, I need to keep this under control. And I say it doesn't really hurt anybody else, but that's not really true, because if you're
Right.
depressed and upset and stuff, you're going to be an asshole driver, and you're going to be, you know, so it does actually affect other people, but it's more in my purview. Like, it's my body that's getting messed up, and my relationships. It doesn't really affect as much my neighbor or whatever. Um, but it's up to us to take care of ourselves, I guess, is where I'm trying to go with this. It's our job.
Yeah, and I was kinda thinking, like, with relationships wise, I mean, I feel like in a way, it would likely create some kinda distance between you and your significant other if
Mhm.
there's a form of being secretive or you're doing something, but you don't really want other people to know. I know for me with porn, obviously, that was a big deal. That was a part of
Yep.
my divorce about of 5 years. But I'd even say I think there were times looking back in the past where it'd be maybe getting drunk or yeah, maybe
Yep.
just sneaking off with some food and it'd almost be like, "This is my little thing, my little secret."
Yep.
Uh, and, like, I think we tell ourselves that a lot is there's absolutely no one else is gonna be affected by this, but, I think to what you've been saying too, like, if it's causing you to be depressed and to be isolate yourself from other people, right? That's ultimately a conversation that you have to have with yourself and ask yourself, hey, is this really something that's serving me? Am I being the
Yeah.
best version of myself that I can be? And of course, we're not perfect, but if we have that conversation with ourselves that first time and
Yeah.
have something down in writing or a commitment, it's really hard to overlook that and to just brush it off like, okay, I wasn't in my right mind at that time. I yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I think that kind of
Hmm.
sticks, I think, with people, and it could be with anything, but sometimes it's like that, like you were talking about, where you got to that rock bottom place of saying, hey, I gotta turn this around. I've got option A or option B, and option B is not a good option at all.
Yep.
And just knowing that you have a way out, right? You said something about space, which I really liked, creating space.
Yeah, I guess if that's the thing with emotions can be like negative emotions can be crushing. Like you feel like there's nothing else. Like it absorbs everything about you is just focused on how you feel and how there's no way around this and you're trapped. And I think a lot of people end up feeling that for various reasons. Um, and there just seems to be no way to stop this situation or to get out of it, right? Um, it can be for any number of reasons you might feel that way. And when you're in that spot, you almost need a hand out. Like you can't get out of there by yourself almost. But if you do manage to find a way to claw to the edge, and you find, in my particular case, once the food got switched around, then the emotions calmed down, and yeah, it did give me kind of like a breather, like a calm spot where I could,
Mm.
like it's just like got through the storm, and sure, the mast on the boat had snapped off and everything, but at least the sun's shining a little bit again, and you can start bailing water, right? You're still not out of trouble, but at least you're not getting rained on anymore as hard. So
Yeah, and it's almost like too just having those moments because I had that moment too where I was considering option B, right, of not moving forward. I think I think when you get through that storm, it really changes your perspective on life.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, but it it seems like the past 2 years of be closer to 3 now of getting to that moment where I was considering option B. I feel like life's just been different in a way of seeing things through different lens and being more grateful for just the little things, so to speak, and a sense of I want to take better care of myself
Yep.
uh, because what my actions have consequences, not just to others but to myself, and I don't want to keep living my life this way. Uh, I think with your story that I really appreciate you sharing is just how you were explaining. You started to kind of address that problem or that deep down trauma or what you're trying to cope with, almost like you started to solve that or started to build that momentum maybe initially without even understanding how it all connected, but just by focusing on like simpler, hey, I'm going to start moving this into my diet. I'm going to
Yep.
start sticking with this, and it's like little tiny things instead of, I think sometimes people like, for me for sure, looking back in life when I've tried to quit porn multiple times, it's almost like you're focusing so much on how big the mountain is ahead.
Hmm.
And really, it's like, well, you got to take like a step toward the mountain first, and then another one before actually, being at the top or getting up there.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Because you're not gonna, on day one, you can't aim too big of a chunk. I think that really applies to almost anything that we. It's so undervalued to take small steps and be persistent. It it's not something that we're taught anywhere or that anybody really talks about. Um, the value of tiny taking tiny bites out of something to eliminate a problem, right? We our society is all about quick fixes and instant millionaires, and making $1 million in a year, and all this stuff. And that's that we're programmed to think that way, but in it just doesn't work that way. It's just like you don't go to the gym, a scrawny 16-year-old, and a year later you put on 100 pounds of muscle. Like, uh, especially if you only go to the gym once a week. Like, it's just not it's not realistic. But if that same 16-year-old goes to the gym for a decade, then then he is somewhere. So persistence, it works in every area of your life, really. Persistence and small steps, and like aiming yourself in a positive direction. It only has to be just a tiny bit of a positive direction. And as long as you keep
Mm.
going in that positive direction, um, instead of uh, juking all over the place, like constantly going negative and negative and positive, then you get stuck, right? So, which is what I used to do. I used to do that all the time. That's the binging cycle, right? You know,
Mm.
go hardcore and eat as much as you can possibly eat until, you basically almost putting yourself in the hospital, and then you know, eat really healthy, what in quotation marks, healthy for a week, trying to counteract it. I was constantly doing that, uh, because that's diet culture. That's what we're trained to do. Um, whether some people think that it's all just women and men have nothing to do with it, that's what we're all brainwashed to think, is that, oh, what healthy eating is, steamed chicken breast and raw broccoli, and that's what you got to eat. Like, totally flavorless food that nobody wants.
That's so true.
Insanity, taking the
Uh,
chicken skin off and throwing it away. Insanity. But anyways,
that
that's what we all
makes me
do.
cringe thinking about it. Okay, so I don't. So this is a perfect segue because one of our audience members, Asante Logan, shout out to you. He's got great poetry. Definitely check him out. Shout out to him. But he made a really good point that I think maybe can lead into a different part of this podcast and conversation that I think will be really interesting to talk through. Is this more of, and you were just talking about this, how we're brainwashed to think a certain way culturally about food. I think it's such an interesting topic to talk about because literally, right? You were talking about it earlier. We've been like poisoning ourselves for decades without even really, it's like we know it, but we also are fine with it, which
Mhm.
is, I mean, thinking about it, so I think I shared with you and the people that follow me, I was in the mountains with some friends over the weekend, and it was really interesting. We had this discussion about pop, or some people call it soda, or some people call it soda pop. What do you call, do you call it soda, pop? Is there a
I
different
guess we call
word
it
in
pop
Canada?
up here mostly. Pop.
Okay, I'm more
Yeah.
I'm more kind of a pop guy too. Maybe that's the mountain time zone.
Yeah.
Uh, but just of how I almost feel like, how you watch a movie today and barely anyone's smoking
Yep.
cigarettes, but you watch a movie that's maybe set in a time of the 70s or the 80s, or you just watch an old movie, right? And like everybody's smoking. And it's almost a nostalgic look back on it. Now today that, oh my gosh, that
Yep.
person's going to get cancer. How unhealthy. I feel like pop and soda is going to be the same way. So when we look back 10 years or 20 years from now, hopefully we look back like, oh my gosh, that pop is like poison in a can. And they're
Yep.
just drinking it and they're trying to be cool.